Good morning, guys, or whatever time you're watching this. I wanted to do a story time. I think I had said I wanted to do one since last year, but I just never got around to it. And I can't really sit down and talk when Kingy's up. So right now, Kingy's asleep. And I had some time in my hands and I decided to do it right now. So like 9 or 10 years ago, my girlfriends and I, my best friend and my cousin, we went to this club that we used to go to often. And it was cool, like it was fun. We were having a good time. And then I see somebody and I'm like, I don't know why he caught my attention. He was just like, at the time, the type of guy that I was into. He was super fly. He had that H-Town swag. This was, mind you, this was 10 years ago, you know. That's when, you know, the whole grill, when all that stuff was in. So I see him and I'm like, hey. Right, so he's passing by and I smile at him and I'm like, hi. No, I'm lying. I did not say hi the first time. I just smiled at him and then he just looked at me like, okay. So then he passed by again, like we were, I mean, it was a club, so you walk around or whatever. And he passed by again and I kept smiling at him. And then finally he came up to me and he was like, hey, what's up? Who you here with, blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh, I'm with my girlfriends. And we just started talking. And the way he talked, he was super country. He had that country slang. And then it was time to leave, so we were still kicking it. And he walked us to the car. And then his homeboy called him because he was with us. Like, his friends left him or whatever. They didn't leave him, but like they were doing their own thing. And then he walked us to the car and then his friend called him and he was like, hey, where are you at? And he was like, oh, I'm with old girl. And I'm like, old girl? My name's Erica, right? So I tell him and he was like, oh, my bad. I'm with this girl that I met. Her name's Erica. And I'm like, that's better. So anyways, they had left him and I was like, it's okay, we'll give you a ride. We'll give you a ride to where he told me he wasn't from there, of course, and they were just visiting for the weekend. He lived in the outskirts of Houston and he worked out of town. So he would always, I think that was his first time visiting the valley, but he would always go like out of town and go to work and then, you know, travel for work. So then we're on our way to drop him off and he's like, slow down, speed racer, like you're driving too fast. And then my best friend was like, any time is a good day to die or something like that. My best friend's morbid. So she said something like that. And then this guy, he was like, I'm not trying to die yet. I'm young. Like, I have a lot to live. And I was like, don't worry, I'm not driving that fast. Calm down. So then I drop him off at the hotel he was staying at. And I'm like, all right, have a good night. Nice to meet you. And I gave him my number, of course. So then the next day he calls me up and he's like, hey, you want to hang out, blah blah blah. And I'm like, sure. So I go over to his place where he was staying at and We were having drinks and talking. We talked about everything. Like, we talked for hours. Like, anything you can think of from A to Z, we talked about it. He was telling me that, you know, he had a son, and where he was from, where he worked at, you know, stuff like that. What we look for in somebody, you know, the regular stuff when you meet somebody that you talk about. So at this point, like, I'm already really into him because of his style. He was actually like a little bit taller than me, and he was thick. He was a little chunky, and I was just so into his style and his swag. He just, the way he talked, like, he was just my kind of dude at that time. So then you know, it was time for me to leave. Oh no, they were gonna go to the club, right? So his friends come in and they're like, hey, let's go, we're going to the club. And he was like, nah, I'm staying, I have company. So we kept talking all night. Like, I left, I went home, and then the next day he calls me and he's like, you know, I'm leaving, but let's keep in touch. And I'm like, yeah, for sure. So we kept in touch, but there was some kind of like disconnect from him. Like, I felt like he would call me or message me whenever he wanted, and I was like, nah, dude, if you're gonna talk to me, you are going to be consistent. You're gonna call me or text me like every day. And he's like, well, I'm busy, like, I work most of the time, like, I'm always working. And I'm like, you don't make time for me, like. So he was like, you know what, you're right. So from then on, like, he would message me every morning. He'd be like, good morning, beautiful, blah blah blah. You know how it goes. So then I'm like, I'm so into this dude already. Like, I don't know why. When I first saw him, it was like it was kind of like love at first sight. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. I was very into him. So then he came to visit me again, and we hung out. We went to the club. He took me shopping. He bought me some clothes to wear to the club that night. He would buy, it was called the Nouveau drink, the pink drink. He would buy that, and it was so good. Like, we just had so much fun together. Even if it was just talking, like, we could talk for hours, and it was fun, you know. And in my mind, I already, like, could picture myself with this person for the rest of my life. Like, seriously. He would ask me, like, what type of ring do you like, stuff like that, right? Stuff that, and mind you, this was like months and months after we met, right? Because you gotta think, you know, he works out of town. We don't see each other all the time, but we talk all the time. So every time he would go visit me, it was so much fun. He came to visit me, and I remember he told me something like, man, I wish I would have met you a long time ago. I wish I would have met you before. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm here now, like, you know, like, let's make this work. And he was like, yeah, I just wish I would have met you before. And I was like, okay. And he was like, he left, and then that's when he, like, ghosted me, right? I was like, what is going on? And I tried to call him, straight to voicemail. I'm like, okay. Like, I was so hurt at that time. Like, I was so hurt because I was so into him, and we had a great weekend. Like, we had been hanging out. It was awesome. So I couldn't understand what had happened. So I'm like, just tell me, like, what is going on? I just want you to tell me what happened. And he told me that he wanted to work things out with his son's mom. And I was like, you know what? I understand. Like, I totally understand. I'm hurt. I'm hurt because you ghosted me. Like, why couldn't you just tell me this, you know, instead of just not talking to me? So he was like, I'm sorry, he apologized, but he said he was gonna work things out with his baby mama. And I was like, that's cool, like, it is what it is. I mean, I didn't want him to, like, I wanted him to be with me, but it is what it is, right? So time went on, and honestly, guys, I was never over him, right? I mean, I dated and I talked to other people, but in the back of my mind, he was always there. So this was back in the time when we had MySpace. And he messaged me, I remember, because I had added him. He messaged me and he was like, I'm so sorry for what I did. You know, the usual apologizing, and he wants to see if he could see me, and he should have never stopped talking to me. And I was like, the normal me would have been like, whatever, dude, like, that's so shady, right? But I was so into him that I was like, it's all good, you know, like, I didn't even feel that, you know how when somebody like hurts you that you feel that animosity towards them, you're just like, oh, you know. With him, I didn't feel that. It was just like, hey, you know, like, shit happens, nobody's perfect, I'm down, let's you know, let's hang out, let's have a good time. So we just kept talking, and I remember he went to see me and we went out to eat, and it was just known that we were good, you know, we were together. And he came to visit me again. He left, right, and he came to visit me again, and all of a sudden he had this cough. Like, he had this horrible cough, like he was always coughing, and I was like, yo, you need to go to the doctor. But he was a manly man, you know, the type that doesn't want to go to the doctor. They don't want to get themselves checked out. And to me, I just thought it was like pneumonia or something, because it was like he would get it more like in the evenings. So I'd be like, go to the doctor, and he'd be like, no, like, it's cool. And I felt like he was scared to go to the doctor. I feel like there was more going on behind the scenes, like, that I didn't know of. And we went to go see that Tyler Perry movie. The what is it called? Why Did I Get Married? It was the one where Jill Scott's husband is a jerk, and he cheats on her, and then he gets sick with cancer. It was that movie. And he was like, man, that's messed up, right? Like, it's messed up how just from one day to another, like, things happen like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's messed up. So anyways, we saw the movie and it was heartfelt, right? So then we go back, we were hanging out, and I remember like him falling asleep. Like, he would take naps and he would fall asleep, and I'd be looking at him like, really, like, get up, like, I'm here, let's talk, whatever. But I remember that day he was taking a nap and I saw his face, and it was just so cute. He had freckles. I don't know, I was just staring at him like, aww. Anyways, he looked at me and he was like, just tell me. And I was like, just tell you what? And he was like, it's alright, you can tell me. And I knew that he was telling me, like, tell me you love me, you know, like, I can tell you love me. But we just left it at that because he didn't tell me. So I was like, whatever, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, So then we were talking about, he was talking to me about how, what do I think about marriage, and we were talking about kids, having kids, and what type of house we would want, you know, stuff like that. So then my nephew was having like a car wash or something like that for his school. My nephew or my niece, I don't know, I don't remember. This was a long time ago, guys. I'm trying my best to remember all the details. But anyways, I'm like, let's go, you know, take your car so they can wash it. And he was like, okay. So he took it And then we went across the street was Whataburger, so we went to Whataburger and we was sitting there. And then my sister called me and she's like, hey, where y'all at, blah blah blah. So that was the first time he met, you know, my family, well, my sister and my brother-in-law. So we go and we're just hanging out, and I'm like, before she gets there, I'm like, take your grill off, like it's just like the grill was cool, but like for me, right, I was like, can you, and he was like, why, this is how you met me, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh my god, just take it off. So he didn't put it on that day. And then we were just hanging out, and I was so happy. I remember I was so happy that day that he had met some of my family. And after that, we got back to his place and we were just talking. Like I tell you, we were planning, like we were making plans. He was like, yeah, you know, we can get a house down here because it's cheaper, like in the valley in South Texas where I'm from. It's cheaper over here. And he was talking about how he wanted the house and, you know, the little details. So at that point, I'm thinking like, yo, I'm tripping. I'm getting married. Like, I'm getting married to this guy. Like, it is what it is, and I'm so into him, and I'm so glad I found him. And I told my other sister, my sister Linda, I was like, I'm kind of scared. She was like, scared of what? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, things never work out for me, like relationship wise. Like, there's always something that happens, right, that it doesn't work out. And I'm scared because this is going so well, you know. I was like, this is going so well, so it feels weird. Like, what if something happens? What if I lose him? I remember telling her, what if I lose him, you know? And I wasn't even thinking about him leaving. I was thinking, you know, negative. Like, I was thinking, like, what if something happens and I don't have him anymore? Like, I found my swagged out man of my dreams, and I was scared to lose him. And my sister's like, no, like, things will be fine, don't worry, like, you found him and just enjoy your time with him. And I was like, you're right. And I remember telling him, because I've always been sick. I'm a very sickly person. And at that time I had like some kind of like heartburn, something that would bother me all the time. And he was like, you need to go get it checked because it can cause cancer, right? After so much, I guess, irritation, it can cause cancer. And I was like, it's okay, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, it's not okay. You gotta live a long life. I have a lot planned for us. And I was like, you know, like, okay, babe. Like, I don't know. I was so smitten with this guy, like, straight up, like. So anyways, he left. And he finally, he was so sick that he finally decided to go to the hospital. And then he called me and he's like, you know, I don't feel good at all. I'm going straight to the hospital right now. And I was like, okay. And I was kind of worried about him, but not like I thought he has pneumonia, like he's gonna go get checked, they're gonna give him something and he'll be fine. So then he called. I remember I was at my best friend's house and he calls me or texts me, I don't remember what it was, and he was like, I have cancer and I don't want you to go through this, so I don't think we should be together. And I was like, what? Like, how did, like, we were just together last weekend. What's going on? Like, I was so confused. I was like, maybe he's ghosting me again. Maybe he just doesn't want to be with me. Like, and I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, I'm in the hospital right now. They did a chest x-ray and they see some spots and they want to do a, what is it called? Biopsy. And I was so confused. I was like, wait, like, how did this happen? Like, we were having a great time. The weekend before, we had a beautiful weekend. It was, I could not believe it. I was so hurt. I was like, I can't, like, no, I'm not gonna stop talking to you. And he was like, I'm telling you, like, it's over. I don't want you to go through this. And I couldn't believe that he was letting me go so easily. But at the same time, I was hurting for him. Like, I could just imagine how he was feeling. He was scared. He was he was just so, you know, like, if you find out something like that, it's, you think that that's it, it's over, right? So I'm like, no, I still want to talk to you. And he was like, no, I'm sorry. So I kept trying to call him and stuff, and he wouldn't pick up, he wouldn't answer anymore. And he told me, like, stop calling me. But I couldn't, like, I would even call him just to hear his voice in the voicemail. And eventually I kind of like backed off, because he was just in a very bad state mentally. Like, he just didn't want me around. He didn't want to talk to me, and I was like, I had to respect that. So I stopped communicating with him. I would send him texts, I'm not even gonna lie. I would send him texts once in a while and ask him like how he's doing and stuff, but he was always really cold. So through that time, I was very depressed. I remember going to the doctor and being like, check me, like, I have something, like, I was going through like a paranoid phase. Like, I felt like I had cancer too. And then the lady was like, the doctor was like, it's not because he had cancer, he didn't give you cancer or something like that. And I'm like, I know that he can't give me cancer, but I want to get checked, like. And she was like, I'm gonna give you pills for anxiety and depression. And I was like, but I'm not, like, I'm hurting, I'm going through something, I'm hurting, but physically I felt sick. I'm like, I have something, I need to get some kind of exam that says that I don't have cancer. And she was like, we don't do that. There's nothing physically that you have, symptoms that you have that, says that you have something. And I was like, okay. So she sent me home, she did blood work, blah blah blah, everything came out good. So she gave me pills for depression and anxiety. I remember taking them and going to work and just being like out of it. Like, I was there, but my mind was like out of it. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it was like a fog. Like, I was there, but I couldn't concentrate. Like, it was a fog. It's weird. So I stopped taking the medication because I was like, I can't even function, right? And I remember my coworkers and my friends were very understanding, and they were there for me. They would talk to me, because I'm the type of person that when I have something in my head, I have to talk about it, right? So they were there for me, and they would hear me out, and they would talk to me, and that helped me a lot. But I couldn't get it out of my mind. I remember one day I went home crying hysterically, and my mom was like, what's wrong? My sister was there too, and I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I'm scared to lose the people that I love. I'm so scared. And she was like, I'm here. I'm like, I don't want to lose you, I don't want to. And she's like, I'm here right now. Like, let's enjoy the time that we have, because what if I have 40 years to live more? Are you gonna live crying 40 years until the day I die? Like, it's normal. We're all gonna die. It's normal. So let's enjoy the time that we have. And then I remember I was crying real crazy, and then I started laughing, and I'm like, you're right. Like, why am I crying right now? Like, you're here. You're healthy. You're here. So I need to stop. So then my ex called me, and he was like, I'm doing really good. You know, the tests are coming out really positive. Like, there's some changes, like it's shrinking. I feel good physically. I feel good. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I was so happy to hear from him. I remember praying for him every day. And my best friend was also there for me. She heard me out, man. I felt bad because I was always bugging her because I just needed to talk about him. And so when he told me he was feeling good, and I was like, let me go see you. Like, let me go see you. You always cater to me. You would always come see me. You would always take me out and treat me like a queen. Let me do something for you. And he was like, you know what? Cool, come on. So my cousin and I, we went to Houston. And he would go to Houston to get his treatment at MD Anderson. So he was like, let's go. So anyways, like, I got there and I was so excited to see him, right? But nervous at the same time. It had been so long. I think it had been half a year or something like that. And he's like, I'm here, right? So then I'm like, okay, like, where are you? So then I see him, and he is a completely different person. Like, I was like, what? And he had told me, like, when you see me, I'm not gonna look the same. And I was like, okay. But like, I didn't think it was gonna be such a drastic change. Like, it was so dramatically, like, it was a big change. He was so skinny, and he was just so different. Like, I remember he was wearing some like sports sneakers, and like, I don't know, it was just, it was him, but it wasn't him. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I feel bad, but I'm so happy he's here. So I remember we were having drinks, and I got a little tipsy, and I remember telling him, like, you don't love me like I love you. Like, why do you push me away? And he was like, it's not that, it's that I don't want you to go through what I'm going through. He's like, it's a lot, and you don't deserve to go through this. And I was like, I want to go through it with you. I want to be there for you. And he was like, no. He's like, I don't want you to see me this way all the time. And I was like, he's like, I do love you. Oh, that's another thing. When he told me he got sick, I was like, I love you. Like, I love you. And I should have told you that day that you told me to tell you, I love you. And he was like, I love you too. And then that day that I went to Houston to see him, I remember we talked about all of that, and he was like, I do love you, and that's why I don't want you to go through none of this stuff. So I was like, let's go have fun tomorrow. We're gonna go to the Kima boardwalk, and we're just gonna have a good time. And he was like, okay. So then the next day we go to Kima. We drove over there. I think we went in his car. Yeah, it was my cousin, myself, and him. We went in his car, and when we got there, like, the walk towards Kima, he was having a difficult time. And then it was super packed, and I could tell he wasn't feeling good. Hi, baby. I could tell he wasn't feeling good. So I was like, let's just go. Let's go. We don't have to be here. And he was like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. And he's like, okay. So we went back to the hotel, and I was like, I remember my cousin and I, we went to the bathroom or something, and I told her, I feel like this is the last time I'm gonna see him. And she's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, like, it feels weird, but I'm at peace. Like, this is the last, I just felt like that was the last time I was gonna see him. But I felt at peace because I got to see him, and I got, you know, to spend time with him, and I got to treat him. I took him to Red Lobster. Red Lobster, girl. All right, B. But yeah, I took him to Red Lobster. We had fun. He didn't even eat. Like, I remember he got a plate and he like took a couple of bites and he didn't finish it. So he just wasn't feeling good. And I remember that night, we fell asleep and my cousin was in the next bed next to us. And I remember I couldn't sleep, right? And I don't know if you guys are going to think this is weird or not. I thought it was weird. I'm not the type of person to be so like into all that weird, not weird, but like, you know, all that stuff, spiritual stuff. I'm not into all that, right? But that night, it was really weird because I was laying next to him and I could hear weird sounds like somebody was breathing in between us. It's so weird. Like somebody was breathing in between us, and I just felt so scared. Like it was a scary feeling, but I didn't want to wake them up. So it just felt like this is the last time I'm really gonna see him. It just felt like, and I don't want to say it like this, but it felt like death was around us. But anyways, I was happy to be there with him. I was happy that, you know, I was able to treat him. And then the next day it was time to leave. So, you know, he said his goodbyes. I walked him to his car and he was like, I'm so glad I got to see you. It was such a good weekend. Thank you for coming and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And we talked about so much stuff. But anyway, and then he was like in and out of the hospital. He would tell me like, I'm in the hospital and this and that. And then I remember like he would call me and stuff and he would be like, I'm in so much pain. I am in so much pain. I just like want God either to make me better or to take me away because I can't deal with this pain. And I'm like, don't they give you medication? He was like, yeah, but I can't be taking them. Like I'll overdose. I felt so bad because I didn't know how to comfort him. Like, how do you comfort someone when they're in so much pain like that? And you're just like, it's gonna be okay. And they're like, no, it's not gonna be okay. Like, I'm in pain. So I felt so horrible. And I'd be like, don't say that. Like, I don't want you to be saying that. I don't want you to say you want God to take you away. And he was like, you have no idea. He was like, it's either get me better or take me away. And I would get so mad when he would say that, but I could understand what he meant. And then one day he messaged me, he sent me a text, and he was like, I'm in the hospital. I don't think I'm gonna make it out of this one. And I was like, you know, in my mind I was like, I wish I could do something. I wish that I could do something. I wish I could take it away. But there was nothing. I couldn't control it. And that was my issue. I felt like I had to do something for him and I couldn't do anything for him. And he was like, I'm not going to make it out of this one. I just want you to know that I love you. And that's one thing I do not regret in my life. Like, I don't regret meeting you. I'm so glad I met you and I love you. And my heart was so hurt that, I mean, I was at peace, but I couldn't let him go. Like, what do you mean? Like, you don't know this. And that's the last time I heard from him. That's the last time he called me. That's the last time he texted me. I didn't hear from him anymore. And at that time, I wish I would have had his family members' number or something, right? But we just never talked about that, right? So time went by and I would blow up his phone just to hear his voice in the voicemail. I couldn't delete his number. I couldn't, and it was until the point that it was disconnected. Like his phone was disconnected. And time went by and I knew he had passed away, but there was no telling. Like I couldn't, who did it, who could I talk to, who could confirm, who could, so I just went on. And then one time I remember I googled his name. I was looking for like more information about him, so I googled his name and where he was from, and it came out. It was an obituary for him. And at that time I was just like, confirmation, this is it. Like, this is a confirmation I needed to let me know, you know, he was finally at peace. He was in peace. He wasn't in pain anymore. So it hurt so bad, but at the same time I felt peace for him because I knew he wasn't suffering anymore. So time went by and I would have so many dreams about him. So many. Like I would always have dreams about him. It's so weird. And then that leads me to my second story time. So I'm gonna cut this one here. I just want to say that I honestly felt like he was going to be my future. I felt like he was the love of my life. And to this day, I really do feel like I'm so thankful that I met him, and it's hard to talk about him sometimes, and I did really good actually for this video because usually I am a mess when I talk about this story. But it also makes me happy because he was a really important part of my life. He was one of the few men that were so good to me, treated me like a queen. And I can honestly say I was so in love with him. And it was a great loss to me. Like, I felt so lost. I went through a horrible stage in my life. It was a really dark place at that time. But after you know, the confirmation, I felt more at peace. After seeing him in Houston, I felt more like, kind of like a, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it felt closure, but not really. Because I still kept dreaming about him. I kept dreaming about him. He wouldn't, like, I don't know why I couldn't stop dreaming about him. Like, and it was always like him telling me like, it's okay, I'm alright, or like, I'm here. I remember one time I had a dream. But anyways, let me cut it here. So that leads me to my next story time, guys. And yeah, I'm glad I could share this story with you guys without without being a complete mess. But yeah, that leads me to finding the true loves of my life.